Hi, Riley. Can you hear me now? It looks like you are in the classroom, but it looks like your audio and camera are not turned on at this point. So let's see if we can troubleshoot that. Let's see. Oh, oh, funny. Hi, Riley. Oh,
Hi.
okay.
My
There we
oh
go.
my gosh. I'm so sorry. My settings were messed up. I fixed
Oh,
that.
okay. Oh, I was like, maybe it's me. Maybe I did something wrong. So I know the first lesson too, I always leave a little bit of wiggle room because I know that, figuring out the technology and whatnot is always a little bit tricky. But I'm so glad to get to see your face and hear your voice. And, put a face to the person that I've been building from our messages. So great to connect with you finally.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous today. I've
Yeah, for
never done
sure.
singing lessons before.
That's okay.
Um, I was in choir in high school.
Yeah, nice.
Um, and I feel like I've kind of fallen off since then.
Yeah, right. That you maybe got away from singing for a while. So coming back to it, it's, a muscle you haven't exercised for a while, maybe. So it's a little intimidating. Plus, when you're singing in that context of a whole big group of people, it's a little bit of a
Yes,
different experience
very
than
different.
singing as a solo artist. So, yeah, a little bit of a different energy and experience. So that totally makes sense. So I just want to check because I know we're getting a little bit of a late start. Do you need to cut off right at 5 today?
Um, yeah,
Okay.
that would
Yeah.
work.
So we'll do a shorter lesson for our, starter lesson. I just want to make sure that I kind of keep on track with that. And then I won't charge you for the full hour since, it's the first time we're meeting, so no worries at
Okay.
all. Okay, so yeah, so since we are just first, connecting one-on-one like this, all right, so tell me a little bit, just kind of your thoughts. You're a little bit feeling a little bit nervous today, but hopefully also really excited.
Yes.
So, how's your voice feeling today? And what would you say is the thing that you want to get out of our session today? That you're like, I will feel like this is a really successful meeting if we can, tackle these things or approach this, or if I can discover this, or what's kind of on your mind for today?
Um, so first of all, I'm actually like really sick right now. I started feeling
Oh
sick a couple days ago, so my throat is like all
no.
messed up.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. So it's been a couple days too. So are you feeling like congestion and drainage mostly, or?
Um, yeah, I might have like the start of strep. My girlfriend
Oh,
got strep, so I don't know.
yeah.
That is
Oh,
something I'd like to work on in the future, learning how to sing when I'm sick,
yeah, right.
because I I get sick and I have seasonal allergies. So I think that's just something I should like learn how to work through anyways.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have chronic allergies too, so that's something I deal with all the time as well. So I totally can relate to that. And I think that is something that singers have to deal with all the time. Our instrument is our body. So,
Yeah.
if we have asthma or allergies or a cold or strep or whatever, sometimes the show must go on, and so being able to figure out how to do that in a way that's manageable and healthy still. Yeah. So usually what I do in the first meeting anyway is I like to get to know you better. I like you to get to know me. And then also, I want to cover kind of the basic building blocks of singing,
Okay.
make sure we're on the same page, kind of see what your strengths are, your weaknesses. With being a little under the weather right now, that part will be a little bit like, we'll kind of be developing that, but that's okay. But I figure we can still go through some of those basic building blocks, and then I can give you some exercises and things that'll help you maintain your strength and flexibility, agility with the voice, breath control, that kind of stuff, but where you're not going to be straining or overexerting the voice at a time when your body's just like, that's too much, right? So I think that's a good kind of place to dive in today. It kind of gets you dipping your toes in the water, but where you don't feel like you're, really pushing yourself to do more than you're
Yeah.
ready for today. So I'll do everything with you today so you don't feel like, oh, it's the first session and whatnot, because I know that can be a little bit scary at first, and it's, building a relationship and trust. So no worries at all with that. But I am sorry to hear that you've been a little under the weather, because that is never fun. Oh, I know, like as a singer, especially, it's like, gosh, like when you have something that really specifically attacks your throat and your voice too, it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, the worst. All right. So, some of what we talk about today might be a little bit of review. You might have heard similar things from your choral directors in the past, but hopefully there'll also be some new things. As we go, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. And also, if there are things that you're observing in your body that you want to share and that we can work through together, I'm absolutely open to that too. So
Okay.
you're welcome to interject, because that helps me to know how to help you better. So I love that kind of interactive feedback, and it's a collaborative process. All right, so the first thing let's talk about is posture and alignment and breath. So the
Okay.
reason we think about our structure of our body is because we want to keep a nice open pathway for that air to flow through. So when you're singing, I want you to always check in with yourself that we're keeping ourselves in a position where the air pathways can stay really open. So thinking about, okay, my hips, my shoulders, my ears, they're all kind of stacked on top of each other. From the hip bone, we're extending and lifting up. Singers, we take space. We don't shrink. So you're going to think very tall and expansive,
Okay.
taking that space. And I want you to think of your shoulders back. That sternum and clavicle are lifted and open. That's going to help with the breath. And then I also want you to think about, with the mouth, this jaw joint, I don't want it popping open and sticking out where it like pops. We just want it to ease down. So this should stay totally flat,
Okay.
and it's just a relaxation. So a release of that jaw rather than an unhinging of that jaw. So just kind of letting
Okay.
that go loose and just drop down.
Okay.
Then I want you to think of that tongue just being nice and just a blob in your mouth. So no tension, just totally released, relaxed, and it just kind of rests there. And then
Okay.
I want you to think of, as you breathe in, think of breathing into an open ah vowel shape. And we're going to think about this lift in the back, the throat space. We're going to think about expanding. So instead of thinking just, breathing in and just trusting that it's there, think of actively opening up that pathway for the air. And then your rib cage as well. I want you to think about those little inner bitty intercostal muscles, and you're going to think about expanding and lifting those. And then as you exhale, they relax and release down. So we're lifting and opening, and then focused energy up and out. Yes, good. Now your diaphragm should just kind of do what it needs to do. The only people I really run into that have trouble with that are like, ballet dancers who've really held their core really tight to do tight spins,
Yeah.
or one of my students, Derek, he does bodybuilding stuff, and so his abs are kind of tight. So he struggles a little bit with relaxing the abs enough that he can utilize the diaphragm effectively. But most of the time, if you are, getting that rib cage expansion, the diaphragm is involuntary. It just kind of does what it needs to do. At rest, it's like an upside down bowl. And then as we breathe in, it flattens and it goes like an elevator action down to create more space for the lungs to fill with air, like a sponge filling with water. They'll expand. And then Italians called it a leaning into the breath, a gentle pressure. So then it's like that same elevator action coming back up, and it just sends a steady pressure to the lungs, and then that airflow is nice and steady, 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 and then it'll come back to its resting place like that upside down bowl shape. So The diaphragm should just kind of know what to do. So try to
Okay.
just kind of keep your gut relaxed and trust that it's doing what it needs to do and stay focused on that rib cage expansion for now. You also can expand all the way in the back space. Our rib cage is actually a lot longer in the back and your lungs as well. So you actually have a lot of room in the back to expand too. So if you really utilize all of that space expanding, filling with air, you're going to be able to do those really long sustained phrases, big high notes that you hold out. So maybe tap into trying to be aware of that back expansion as well. So if you focus on the sides and it kind of spreading around to the back. So let's try that again. Breathing in. Yeah. Yeah. Yawning is great for singing. I love it. I had a dance teacher growing up who was like so offended if you yawned, but yawning is wonderful for singing. So I told you to breathe into that open ah space. So it's probably just your body kind of figuring that out. So no worries there. All right. Breathing in, expanding, and then focused energy up and out. Mm-hmm. So this week, really be focusing on, we don't want shallow breaths, clavicular breathing, like that'll get you really fast oxygen in and out, but we have no control over the exhalation then. And as singers, we have to be able to choose how fast or slow we want to send that air out. We have to be able to monitor the breath and let it have a steady flow to it, right? So breathing lower into your core is going to give you that ability to manage the breath better. So gaining awareness. So something I want you to try this week, you can lie on your back. I like to bend my knees and point my knees up at the ceiling and flatten my feet because it'll flatten the lower back as you lie on your back. If your legs are just straight out, your lower back has a little curve. And I like to feel more awareness of that lower back expanding. So you can try both ways, see what you like. You can put your hands on your belly or maybe a heavy book on your belly and just try to feel that gentle rise and fall that happens. We breathe the perfect way for singing when we lie on our back. It's kind of a magical thing. So I just want you to try that this week and even try singing in that position and see how that feels. And then try taking that lying on your back to a vertical position. And you're going to line up your back against the wall and then kind of slide down into a seated position like a wall sit. And then try breathing against the wall with that wall sit. You're going to feel a really nice engagement of your leg muscles and your ab muscles. So you're going to get a really nice grounded feeling and anchor. And then also you'll have a really nice awareness of that expansion and release in that position as well. So try both of those this week. Breathing in, feeling that expansion and then that energy up and out. And try singing from that wall sit position as well. So those are a couple of breathing exercises just to try this week, okay? All right, so we've got our breath working well. How does the voice actually work then? Well, we have one tube that the air flows through, which flows through the mouth and the throat, but then it's kind of like a fork in the road. It splits into two, where we have our esophagus and our trachea. So right at the top of that, we have little gatekeepers that whenever we swallow, so we're eating food or water, or anything like that, they're going to close to say, you guys go that way, go to the stomach, right? And so they're making sure that only air gets to go to our lungs. So they're keeping us alive. It's great. We love them. Our bodies, we just have learned over time to use these gatekeepers to create sound. It's very cool. So your vocal folds are actually those little gatekeepers. They're the same thing. So when we want to make sound, we just pull them together and then we send air through. So we close them, but we keep a light enough pressure that air can flow through, and then we vibrate and we get a certain pitch. If you vibrate slower, you get a lower pitch. If you vibrate faster, you're going to get a higher pitch. Pretty simple, right? So the rate at which you send the air, if you send the air faster, you're going to get a higher pitch. If you send the air slower, you're going to get a lower pitch. We also have two muscles that control those. One is going to stretch them more front to back, and one is pulling side to side. So when I engage that side to side muscle, I'm going to get a firmer pressure. When I get more pressure, it's harder for the air to flow through, so it's going to slow the airflow down. So that firmer pressure is going to give us a slower airflow, lower pitches, slower vibrations. When I stretch front to back, we're going to get a lighter pressure, So we're going to get a faster airflow and higher pitches. So when you feel that there's more pressure, more intensity and pressure in the vocal folds, you're probably going to be vibrating more slowly and getting lower pitches. And then when you stretch more front to back, you have a lighter pressure. You're going to feel a faster flow of air and higher pitches. So that's how we're using those two. There are times when you're actually going to be vibrating or engaging both muscles at the same time. For females, that can be up to like an octave and a half. It's a pretty big range. And then for males, it's usually a smaller range. But it's very important, regardless of what voice type you have, or how much testosterone your body has and how thick and large the vocal folds are, or how small they are, regardless of instrument. The instruments are basically all the same. It's just the size is different. And regardless, I think it's very important as a singer to get strong and comfortable in both muscles and get strong and comfortable and able to have them work together as partners so that we get a nice smooth transition, right? Sometimes you'll want like a clear flip where it sounds like two separate voices and it has a clear flip for the style that you're singing in, but we want the option as an artist, right?
Yes.
So I think it's really important to do both. So just kind of knowing yourself, are you usually more comfortable singing lower or singing higher?
I think I'm more comfortable singing higher.
Okay,
I
yeah,
feel like my low notes
yeah,
get a little waffly.
sure,
I feel like I kind of do that
yeah,
like brassy kind of like talk
mm,
like this, you
yeah.
know.
Right. So usually I find most of the time when people come into lessons, they're stronger in one muscle or the other. They just kind of prefer one or the other. When I first started lessons, I was stronger with my front to back muscle as well. So I preferred singing a little bit higher. I was just more comfortable with that. And it just kind of depends on the individual, whichever muscle they've developed more. So that just gives us a little bit of insight into you probably have just used your front to back muscle more. So that is technically called your cricothyroid muscle. I'm going to
Yeah.
refer to it as your head voice muscle, which is kind of the Northeast New York style of teaching terminology. The
I
reason
know that word. I didn't know the other
Great.
one.
Excellent. Awesome. Love it. So you're like, oh, that's familiar. Love it. Yay. So the reason I'm going to call it that is because most people, not all, but most, will feel the vibrations somewhere in their head when they're using that muscle. And then the other muscle, the side to side one, is your thyroarytenoid muscle. I'm going to call that your chest voice muscle. The reason we say that is because most people, again, not all, but most will feel the vibrations more in their chest. So it's just about the sensations that you're feeling when you're using either or. You'll also hear me sometimes say mixed voice, which just means we're using both muscles at the same time. So we're going to do a little fun experiment. I want you to try like a sad little puppy dog, and you're whining, you're like, I'm hungry or something, you
Okay.
need something, and you're going to try going,
Okay.
and it's whatever pitch is comfy for you. So my pitch might be a little different, and that's okay. So just think like sad little puppy dog.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good. So now I want you to try like your little baby owl, and you're like calling to your mama bird who like flew off to get you whatever mama owls get, worms or mice or something, and you go whoo whoo
Whew,
whoo.
whew.
Good, awesome. So now I want you to try like Santa Claus, a big, boomy, deep, resonating call. Ho, ho, ho!
Oh,
Merry
oh,
Christmas!
oh. Sorry, I feel a
Exactly.
little
Yes.
silly.
Yeah, so sometimes we're gonna do silly things and make funny sounds, but it's just so that we can make new discoveries about our instrument and our voice. So when I have you do the little sad puppy sounds, where did you feel vibrations in your body?
Um, like right here, like
Okay,
right at
all
the top
right.
of the chest,
Yeah. And then what about when you did the Santa Claus big ho ho ho?
a lot lower.
Okay, you feel it lower. Yeah, you can feel it just resting lower in your torso. Yeah, love that. Okay, awesome. So, see, this awareness is something that is really important every individual singer is going to feel and process a little bit differently. It's not like a dance class where I can be like, oh, look in the mirror. You see how you're not quite angled as much as everybody else, or oh, you need to turn out your toe a little bit more, those kind of things. You don't have that visual. So we go more by sensations. And so sometimes people come into lessons and they're very strong thinkers. And so I love that you have that ability to kind of assess and go, what am I feeling? And you're already able to articulate that. That is an excellent thing. I love that. Beautiful. Awesome. So I would love to try. We're going to slide low to high. Now, when we do this, your muscles are engaging with that side to side, and then they're going to slide to stretching more front to back. So we're going to say whoop and do a whoop, and you're just going to slide low to high.
Okay. Woo.
Nice. Yeah,
Okay.
good. Lovely. And that was really smooth. Lovely. And I didn't hear like a sharp, abrupt, like flip or break, like a hole in the voice or a gap. So that's awesome. So very smooth. All
That
right,
is
now we're going
something I practice sometimes. I
nice. Yeah.
feel I don't know. I try to get like past my break smoothly.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely have one, but
Sure, yeah, but that's something you've been working on. So I love that because that means your muscles, you've already been aware of that and you've been trying to keep that really smooth and have more control through there. I love
I
that.
think because I sing like higher up, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like more used to that. Like I like I'm singing right in that like range.
Mm-hmm. You're going through it quite a lot. Yeah. Because otherwise you might be flipping, fully into your like whistle register falsetto kind of land, eventually too. So it's probably in that right in that range where you have to go through a transition and then you're, also in that upper part of your voice. Yeah. So we have these different parts of our register, all refer to chest voice, mixed voice, head voice. So right in that like transition, what we're doing is that's where we're changing shapes essentially. So like we're fully using that side to side muscle, your chest voice muscle. You'll have a little bit of a transition into going into mix where you're using both together. And then you're going to have another little transition going into where you're just using that front to back muscle, your head voice muscle. So that's really great to hear that smooth transition. And I could hear you moving through. To other people, it would just sound like one smooth line, but I could hear that there was a little bit of a quality change in the tone. And I could hear that you were changing shapes. I loved it. That was beautiful. Really nice.
Okay.
It's a great place to be coming in. At the extremes of your range, at the very bottom, you'll have vocal fry, which is kind of that like Johnny Cash kind of sound where it gets
Yeah.
crackly and gravelly, like a and then at the tippy top, you're gonna have like a Mariah Carey, Ariana Grande, the whistle tone. And I usually don't say falsetto because there's a little bit of confusion in the teaching realm of what that refers to. Some people use it to say head voice for males, some people use it to say whistle register. So I usually, just to avoid confusion, say head voice and whistle register. But if you process it as falsetto, that's perfectly okay too. And
Okay.
I'll adjust my terminology to make it make sense to you.
That
So,
is something I'd like to work on.
yeah.
Like I feel like my falsetto voice is a little weak
Okay.
and
Yeah.
doesn't
And that's
sound as
something you want to strengthen. Yeah.
it doesn't sound like as pretty as like a falsetto should sound.
Right. Yes. Okay. So with that, I would say the first thing we need to do is get your muscles comfortable with stretching that far because it's like if you were stretching, you're trying to learn to do the splits, right? You're going to be like, oh, my muscles are not ready to go that far yet. And you have to
Yeah.
be pretty disciplined about consistently stretching. And so we have to be stretching the vocal folds. So I love that you've been challenging yourself to do slides. I want you to do that every day. Every single day, you're going to do these sirens and slides up and down. And I just want you to practice letting your voice be free. So, like a whoop, woohoo, ah, Yee! Take different vowels and just practice letting your voice be free and slide. Sometimes it's helpful to move your body with it, or like I like to do it, for instance, when I'm in the shower because my body is warm. I'm breathing in steam. Our bodies love to be warm when we're singing. So, like if I've just gone for a walk in the snow with my dogs or something, and I just have gotten home and I'm cold, that's not the best time to be doing slides,
Yeah.
right? I probably want to put a scarf on and a sweatshirt and like, fuzzy socks first, get warmed back up, and then try doing the slides. So maybe like moving your body, kind of like dancing in your space, checking that like your muscles are nice and relaxed, do some stretches, kind of like, get your body a little warmed up and moving a little bit as you're getting into that can be helpful too. Because if we're kind of like rigid, that sometimes that tension can limit the stretch. So kind of like working out any kinks and checking that you're nice and loose too can be helpful too. So doing slides and sirens every day, that's going to be something that's going to be helpful. And how long does that take? Like 30 seconds to slide your voice, right? So that's something I would say try to do every single day and
Okay.
just challenge yourself to be stretching that. So let's try a high to low slide. So let's try on Wahoo, and we're going to do a Wahoo and just a high to low wherever it's comfy for you.
Okay. Wahoo!
Okay,
See,
yeah,
there's
I
that for
got
me.
to hear your falsetto then too, which is great. I love that. Beautiful.
Oh,
And yeah.
can I take a second? My phone is at 10%. I have to grab my
Oh,
charger.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Okay.
I've done that too, where I'm like, oh, rats. I didn't charge up first. No worries at all. Alrighty, yeah, because we don't want to like be right in the middle and have it just go bloop. So take a couple seconds, do that. All right, so something that I loved was that I actually heard you stretch, and you felt that, right? It's a
Yes.
different kind of quality. So the prevailing theory of what's happening there with the whistle register or falsetto, we're stretching so far that we're no longer lining up entirely and vibrating the full vocal folds, but we're just vibrating just on the little tippy end of it,
Okay.
which is why we don't feel like we have as much control up there. It just kind of feels like these little like ping, like bell tower kind of sounds that squeak out. So it's a very different kind of feeling there. And you felt too like there was a pretty clear shift coming back down from it. And we heard that upper break from like the head voice into that falsetto land. So that I can hear there's not quite as much control there. But I'm really glad to hear that your body was willing to try and stretch and go to that new space. So that's awesome. That's great. So yeah, that's a great place to be. So as we're going through, I'm taking notes. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm like every now and then like typing along because I'm
I'm
like,
taking
okay, I
notes
want to
too.
remember this. Yeah, yeah. Because I'm gonna kind of come up with a plan for myself of all right, here's where we're at. Here's all the things we want to work on. These are the strengths. These are some of the weak points that we want to strengthen. So I'm loving hearing that your body is willing to stretch and be flexible and go to these different spaces, even with you having been a little bit under the weather and feeling kind of like congestion and drainage and like a sore throat kind of stuff. I'm not hearing anything that's like danger zone where I'm like, oh, that sounds like worrisome. I'm curious, do you ever feel pain when you're singing?
Um, when I'm using distortion or
Sure.
screaming,
Okay, yeah,
um, I don't know if that's something you
that
could
makes
help
sense.
with.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I feel like when I use light distortion, I can like get
Mm-hmm.
it to a point where it doesn't hurt. But when I'm like
Yeah.
a little bit heavier, like it starts
Mm-hmm.
like I can't do it for very long.
Yes, yes. Okay, yeah, that's absolutely something that we can work on. Yeah, that completely makes sense because sometimes we're just trying to imitate and create a sound. And so What's great is the voice is very resilient. So, a laryngologist told me that in 3 full days, so you go like the full 24 hours, right? So, what is that, like 72
72.
hours? Yeah, 72 full hours. If you made no sound at all, your vocal folds are going to entirely replenish and have new cells. You'll have entirely new vocal folds. So, one great thing is we can experiment and try things. And it's like, even if we cause a little bit of damage, we can just like rest, and then the voice will replenish itself and rejuvenate. And so that's a really cool thing. So I love that you have the awareness and you're like, that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. So when you feel like you push yourself too far, you can just be like, all right, now I'm going to rest, let my voice heal, and I'll try it again, right? But it definitely is helpful when you have some guidance to go,
Yeah.
this doesn't feel good. I hate this, and go, what's happening? Why is this not working? So that's definitely something I want to dive more into. So one thing I want you to be sure that you try to do kind of in preparing for practicing working on distortion. I know that you said you feel like the lower part of your voice is not as strong. We need
Yeah.
to get that a little bit stronger, that muscle. So I want you to be sure that when you're practicing these slides, practice doing a slide like a sigh all the way down into that vocal fry. So doing a ah, and just try to kind of rest there. Now, back in like the 1800s, pedagogues, in Italy and stuff, they said, oh, never do this. It's terrible for your voice. But modern research has actually shown that it's actually quite nice for your voice. I wouldn't say we want to live there all the time, but they actually use it in voice therapy. It's almost like a little vocal reset or vocal massage. And when we slide into that space, the body releases hydration both internally and externally to the vocal folds. So internally, they'll swell and fill with hyaluronic acid, so they vibrate more evenly. And then externally, almost like putting WD-40 on a squeaky door, so that they'll vibrate and slide against each other more easily. So it's a great thing to actually add to your warm-ups and your cool downs at the end of a big vocal workout. So that's something I want you to be doing every day, is being sure that you slide all the way down there, because we want to be working on that side to side stretch and strengthening that particular muscle if we're wanting to get a little bit more, agility and coordination with that vocal distortion kind of quality. And I really want to strengthen the vocal fry as well, because that's something that we can play with. That's one of the techniques that we can use to give us a little bit of that grittier distortion sound.
Right.
So try that for me right now. Let's try sliding and see what we can get to. So,
Okay.
yeah, and it's just kind of like like a car just like parked at a stoplight, and it's just like that like rumbly kind of a feeling,
Yeah.
right? And so we're just kind of like sitting in that. And the reason it's not a clear tone anymore is because we're stretched so far that we're not lining up evenly anymore, right? We've got like little gaps. And so you get kind of this like crackly kind of sound. But I think that's going to be really important to working on that coordination. So we've been talking a lot about the breath, how that works, and then also how the vocal folds work. That is not everything with singing. So we also have our articulators. We have this tube the air flows through. We've got our larynx. We've got our jaw, our lips, our tongue, right? So all these different things that we move to create different shapes that the air is going to flow through after going through the vocal folds. So if you think of things like words, we wouldn't have those without all of our articulators, right?
Yeah.
If you think of different sizes and shapes of glass bottles, maybe I have a short, square one, and then I have a long, rounded one, and I have one that has like a pear shape, and I have one that's like a wine bottle shape, right? So I have different sizes and shapes of glass bottles, and I blow over the top, I'm going to get a different sound because the air is flowing through these different shapes and vibrating differently into those shapes. So we are doing that same thing with our voice. You're creating these different shapes, which is going to get different sounds. So for
Okay.
instance, your larynx, I didn't show you this before, but this little notch down here, if you just gently touch it and you do a you'll feel the vibrations. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where your vocal folds live, is right there. Now, if you touch a little bit above and you swallow, You're going to feel your little Adam's apple, your larynx, your cartilage box rise and fall. That's there to protect the vocal folds. If I raise that, I'm going to get a brighter sound in my voice, kind of like a I'm always true to you, darling, in my fashion.
Right.
That's
Some
a
like
time when I
radio
would use that,
sounds.
right? If I lower that, I'm going to get a warmer, richer tone. So, like if I did a fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars, I have a lower larynx to get a warmer quality, right? So
Yeah.
that's one way that I can change the shape. This palette, I can drop the roof of my mouth. It's a stretchy
Oh,
thing that I can raise and lift. I can lower it. If it's higher, I get a warmer, more resonant, boomy, full, kind of rich tone. If I lower it, I'm going to get a brighter kind of a sound. If I have my tongue more forward, I get a brighter sound. If I pull it more back and lift it in the back, I get a warmer sound. You're going to hear me sometimes talk about more forward and more back. I'm talking about the tongue. So forward, the tongue is pushed more forward. So like your E's, your A's, your A's are going to be a little more forward. If I talk about more back vowels, I'm talking more about like A's and O's. If I talk about more mid placement, I might be talking more about like the or the I might be more mid, right? And so that's talking about like where your tongue shape is kind of creating a different pattern for the air to
okay.
flow through. So that's something I'm going to talk about sometimes. So maybe this week start having kind of an awareness, try singing through on different vowels. Like if I sing through a song on E, for instance. So I do like what's a song? Okay, so like Cody was working on Speechless. So if I did that's much more forward and a brighter kind of sound. It's a more widespread vowel and it's a lot more flat of a vowel as well. If I tried doing that on an O, it's going to be a very different shape. It's more open back here, more tall, rounded shape, and the tongue is going to be lifted more in the back. So like oh, 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 and I get a different kind of sound. Also, though, a different feel. So I want you this week to play with singing on some different vowels as well and just experiment with how those feel and just the different shapes and the sounds that you get from that. Sometimes we have a little bit of a hard time hearing ourselves. So if you feel like you're not getting like a really clear awareness, try plugging one of your ears. You might have seen in pictures or like videos, people in the studio like da 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 da, singing and they'll plug their ear. The reason they're doing that is because we feel the vibrations differently. We're
Yeah.
sending our sound out, right? So we're not hearing it the same way someone standing in front of us would. But when we plug our ear, we feel those vibrations very differently against our eardrum, and we'll have much more awareness of what we sound like. So that can be a really useful tool when gaining that awareness too.
Okay.
So I know that you said, your voice isn't feeling top notch, but I wondered if there was anything you wanted to sing for me today, just so I could hear a little bit of something you've worked on recently, or
Um,
even just like a simple short chorus of something, like "You're My Sunshine," or just something that's like a short little thing. It doesn't have to be huge, but just so I can hear a little bit of where you're at today.
okay. Sorry, I'm a little nervous now.
Yeah.
Um, I have my guitar. I can only sing and play guitar. Like,
Okay.
I need that like barrier. Um,
Sure. Yeah. It just like makes you feel a little safer to have that. Yeah.
um, I wanna tell you something. Wait, sorry, I forgot the words.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm so nervous now. Um,
I mean, even just from that, I got like, the kind of vibe of the song, and I'm a little like, okay, I could definitely, like you've got a style. Like even just that was really cool. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
sorry, I know that was like literally one line.
That's okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, I have an idea even just from that one line. But who do you think are artists that you kind of sound similar to that you would say, I feel like
Um,
my voice kind of matches up to these artists?
um, I don't know his name. The person from Tiger's Jaw.
Oh, the
Um,
band, yeah.
yes.
What is, let me, I'm gonna look it up. Let's see. Let's find out. Ben Walsh is their
That
like
sounds right.
primary songwriter. Is that the one who that you're thinking of? They have
Yeah.
like, background vocals and whatnot too, but yeah. So I think it's Ben Walsh who you're thinking of. Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
I used to very much try to emulate Kurt Cobain, but I've been trying to like
Okay.
stay very far away from that recently
All
because
right.
I don't want to just be doing the same thing over and over again, you know?
Well, also if you're wanting to create your own kind of like iconic sound, I think that there's definitely value in imitation. Mariah Carey says when she was young, she's like, "Oh, I just listened to all the greats and I just tried to sing like them, and I'd like take their riffs and learn them." And I think there's something definitely valuable in that you can learn a lot from that. But I also think that getting to where it's like, this is my true, authentic vocal
Yeah.
sound is also essential. So, what do you feel like maybe with trying to imitate Kurt Cobain? What are the things that you felt like you noticed that you were like, okay, these are things that are easier for me. These are things that are a little bit more challenging for me. Um,
Um,
that you feel like you kind of mastered and struggled with.
I think it was hard to emulate the kind of like sassiness
Okay,
quality,
the
if that makes sense.
sass. Yes.
Um, I feel like I got pretty good at some of his like higher screamy bits.
Okay, nice.
Um,
Okay, awesome. Good.
that is something that definitely Kurt Cobain did not use like proper vocal technique, so I think that's why it's like hurting. Um,
Yeah, if you're just trying to imitate, yeah, that can be a struggle. Yeah. So
um,
that might be something that we want to tackle. So you kind of were working on that and you were like, this is not feeling great. So you backed
yeah,
off a little bit. Yeah. So that's something we should work on more.
yes,
Yeah. So honestly, even just from, this very first line that I heard you singing, um, I would say that the tone was pretty smooth and grounded. It had, so Italians talk about this thing called chiaroscura, which means a balance of light and dark. And so
okay,
I felt like you had a really nice balance of that with like some natural warmth. Um, but also like a little bit of brightness in there too, which is nice because you kind of get this spectrum of colors. And it had like a more kind of calm, intimate kind of a feel. It wasn't like overly dramatic or belty. It was more of like an understated delivery, but it felt very sincere and it had that kind of conversational quality,
yeah.
where like it wasn't all about like the beautiful line of the singing, like you were truly communicating, which I thought was really nice. And you
I feel
had
like
kind of
all
this
of my
like,
songs are like that. I
yeah,
feel
okay.
like this one is definitely more like folk inspired
Yeah,
than
yeah, I definitely feel like it feels like you're imparting like wisdom or like telling a story, which is great. Um I thought it had kind of this like indie emo kind of a vibe,
yeah,
which I really liked. Like, like on the line between like indie rock with like a little bit of emo kind of vibe, which is
yeah.
great.
That's
And it
honestly what
doesn't
I'm
feel
going for.
whiny to me. It had like a really earnest feeling to it, like clear, earnest, a little bit of melancholy, but not whiny, which I loved.
I
Um,
definitely struggled with some whininess in the beginning
mhm.
because I was like trying
Oh,
to emulate
okay.
like pop punk and
Oh,
just like trying to
okay.
like find my voice. And I don't think that
Yeah.
was right for me. It just sounded like I was complaining, which like isn't the
Oh.
vibe I'm going for.
Well, I definitely think that you have worked on that because I did not feel like it had the whiny sound that you sometimes get with that like emo. It had more warmth to it, which was nice. Yeah. Um, I really feel like I see how with this style, having a little bit of like a light rasp or a breathy
Yeah.
edginess, like a soft grit, could be really helpful when you get more emotional intensity in certain passages later in the song. Um, so yeah, I think that is something I noticed that I was like, oh, okay, that I liked. Do you feel like I feel like a similar sound could be like Death Cab for Cutie?
Yeah.
Like do you feel like that too?
I actually haven't listened to a lot of Death Cab for
Okay.
Cutie. From what I have heard, I feel like probably like a similar vibe.
Yeah, yeah. I felt like it was a similar vibe for sure. So that was one thing that I thought of that I was like, oh, this has like a little bit of that kind of an energy. But yeah, I'm gonna look for some other singers that I feel like have a similar sound. Because sometimes working on, covers of other people's songs can help us master specific techniques that we're trying to conquer.
Yeah.
So having somebody to listen to and emulate can be really helpful. So from today, I'm curious, what would you say is like the number one thing that was the most fun that we did today?
Um, I think the slides.
Yeah.
I think that's something I'm like comfortable with and I've done a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Awesome. Good. I agree. I think I was excited when I heard the slides. So we're right on the same page there. What would you say is one thing that maybe was like a light bulb moment or a new thing that you learned today, or maybe a breakthrough moment where you felt something new?
Um, just a lot of the anatomy stuff.
Sure.
I kind of go based off of just feel, and I guess having
Hmm.
kind of like a different framework is nice.
Right. Yeah. Kind of having a different understanding and being able to say, okay, so when I feel this, this is what's happening. Yeah. Sometimes that is really helpful. I'm curious, do you feel like you're a stronger visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner?
Um,
And if you're not sure, that's okay too.
Kinesthetic means like doing something with your
Yes,
hands, right?
exactly.
Yes, that one.
I think so too. Yeah, you have a really strong awareness of the sensations in your body and the feelings, which I think is awesome for singing. That's great. Also, when I have you think about things like remember. So this is a little fun trick. If you like ask somebody, "What'd you have for breakfast today?" If they look up, they're visualizing it. So that tells you, oh, they're more visual. If they look to the side, that means they're more auditory. They're remembering what they were hearing at that time. And if they look down, it means they're remembering how they felt in that moment. And you tend to look down more often. So then that suggests that you're a more kinesthetic learner. So you learn more by doing it and experiencing it, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I just wondered, but sometimes people have, they're well balanced or it changes for different people. I, for instance, am a very strong auditory learner. I'd say that's my strongest. So that helps me too to just have an awareness of that with how to explain things to you and what to have you try. So I think giving you exercises to try and things to like, how does that feel? I think that's going to be something that works really beautifully for you, which is
Okay.
awesome. So then I'm curious too. Is there anything that we did today that you were like, "Oh, this is definitely something I gotta work on"?
Um, I think feeling silly and also just
Yeah.
feeling nervous about
Hmm.
performing or singing. Which like obviously the end goal is I'd like to perform live,
Mm.
which I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just scary and intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, that kind of helps me know, what's kind of like our sweet spot from today, what's like, a breakthrough, and then also what's something we got to keep working on. So I've got a lot of good notes from today and ideas in my head. I'm going to go put together kind of like an outline for myself. I am going to send you an email with things to be like some thoughts from what we did today, as well as some tips on how to be practicing over the next week. So I would love for you to, can you text me your email right now? And then I'm going to
Yep.
send you like some homework. I'll organize all of that for you and give you some concrete things to be doing. so that that you have real practical things to be doing in your practice time. Pretty early on in teaching, I figured out that people don't always know how to practice on their own. So I'll give you some tips on how to be practicing during the week. I also want to open this up to you if you ever want to, for instance, send me a recording, you're practicing and you go, ouch, that didn't feel really good. Or you go, ooh, I sound awesome. I loved that. And you want to share something with me, feel free to do like a little voice memo, email that to me so I can take a listen. I'm always excited to hear those things and, be able to know how things are working on your own practice time too. Also, since you are not feeling like top notch right now, if you have anything that you're like, this was a day that I felt really, really good, I'd love to hear something from that you're like, I felt confident when I recorded this kind of a thing, as well, just so I have a better idea. But so do you feel like from today, do you feel like you were able to get, what you were looking for from this lesson?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I
All right.
know
That's fair.
that it's definitely this is the very first lesson, and I think if I keep going, I'll get
Yeah.
more of what I need.
Right.
Um, but I do think it was helpful just getting me
Sure.
comfortable.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Just kind of breaking the ice, opening the door, getting it going. Absolutely. Yeah. And so yeah, I think that it definitely is a compounded effect, and it's something that it's like a lot of new ideas too. So then you have to go take time to work through all of that. So I love that you took the notes and that you were able to give feedback and say things in your own words. You being able to respond like that assures me that then you know how to go work on it on your own. So I love that kind of feedback. I'm like, yes, if you were like, I have no idea, just like spoon feed it to me, I'm like, oh, it's a little more stressful for me because I'm like, okay, how do I like impart this to you where it like can be internalized? So I love that you are internalizing things. And I think as you practice and experiment, like when I send you the email with things to be working on this week, I think you're going to be able to tap into that a lot better. And then also, like you're saying, you're like, I'm kind of nervous today too. So I think having that time by yourself to explore is going to be really valuable.
okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
But
definitely
definitely
will.
we're going to work on some performance techniques and dealing with that anxiety too, because that
Yeah.
is something that pretty much everybody deals with. It's funny because people are like, you look so confident on stage. And I'm like, I still feel nervous. I just don't show it.
I definitely can send some demos. Just
Yes.
my audio interface broke, and I had
Oh
to get a new
no.
one. So,
Christmas.
um, I will be working on stuff.
Yeah.
I had a question about
Sure.
that. Would
Yeah.
you prefer vocals only or like a full mix? Because
I think vocals only will give me a more like raw, natural, real sound. Whereas the mix, I mean, that's helpful to know like what your end goal is. That it's like this is the end result that I'm working towards. So I think both would be helpful, but since we're primarily focusing on improving the vocals, I think that it would be more helpful to hear just like your raw vocals so that I can just have it like totally unadjusted, like
okay,
because there's so much we can do and tweak with the voice, so I don't want to hear it necessarily like after you've added EQ and everything. Like
yeah,
I want to hear like what your real raw sound is, because that's where we're going to be able to really get in there and like get the nitty gritty, kinks worked out. So yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
okay,
That was a
cool.
really good question. But I always love to hear the end result too. So if you ever were like, hey, here's the end mix,
Like this
it's all
song's
fun.
actually a banger.
Yeah, you're like, listen to it. Isn't it awesome? I love that moment too when it all comes together. So yeah, I have other students who they'll send me their like final results, and it's always fun to hear, and especially like the difference between, that process of working on it in lessons and then that end result of here's the recording after they've been in the studio. So yeah, I mean, it's just fun. It's like a fun thing to celebrate. So awesome. Okay. So, did you want to set up our next time now, or would you like to, wait and like have a little bit of time to be working on your own? What do you think?
Um, Could we maybe schedule it out for 2 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So then we'd be looking at, you said Tuesdays or Fridays, right? The 16th or
Tuesdays,
the
Thursdays,
19th.
or Fridays.
Okay,
Thursdays are a little
sure.
bit rough because I,
Oh,
I do have band practice that day.
okay, sure. Yeah.
Um,
So it's kind of a lot for your voice that day then, yeah. You said usually noon to 5 is the best window, right?
yes.
Actually, if we did Tuesday the 16th, I have actually that entire open. Everything I have is either before that or after that day. So I could do anytime noon to 5 that day.
Um, on a Tuesday, could we actually? Let me actually check my calendar.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah,
I
check
want to
it.
make sure that I don't have anything planned.
Okay, no problem.
Nope, actually, I am free 100% that day. Could we do?
Perfect.
Could we do 2 o'clock?
Yes, absolutely. All right, 2 o'clock the 16th. Perfect. Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. I look forward to it. And then too, you have a couple days before your band rehearsal too. So it's like you can, work on the voice and then have it you're like all polished up and ready to go Thursday. You'll have like a rest day between too. Love it. Awesome. Okay, so I will send you that email and then I will look forward to us getting together and I'm excited. I think it's gonna be great. Alrighty, well, great meeting you. Great start to everything. I'm feeling really good about everything. Like I said before, I didn't hear anything that was concerning or like, ooh, this is like a bad habit we need to break. It was all positive, and then it was just stuff that I was like, okay, so we just want to, improve these things. So
Yeah.
sometimes people come in and I'm like, ooh, we got to like backtrack first before we can go forward, and you're not there. Like you've already made some progress moving forward too. So it's just kind of like I'm joining you on the journey at like a hiccup, and we're gonna like help you, keep progressing forward. So very exciting. And if you ever are like rehearsing with your band and you're like, wow, like I think we sound really good, and you want to like record, just like live in that moment, like on your phone or something, and just send that to me too. I'm always open to that too. So
Okay.
yeah, I think you're in a great spot. I'm sorry that you're not feeling top notch, but hopefully that gets better. I know as the weather changes, our bodies react to that. So every time the weather changes, our bodies have to
Yeah.
adjust. So it could just be that. So fingers crossed it clears up really quickly. And I'll look forward to seeing you on Tuesday the 16th.
Yep.
All right. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye
Riley.
bye.